Hello everyone. We are going to talk about factoring trinomials. And the form of the trinomial that we're going to have is the standard form, but we say that a is going to be equal to 1. So ax squared plus bx plus c, we call that the standard form of a trinomial. And I've color coded a, b, and c. But what we're looking at specifically with this lesson is to where a is 1. So we're just left with x squared plus bx plus c. And the factored form of this trinomial will look like this. We'll have two binomials and we'll be multiplying them together. And you'll see this as we work through, but I want you to be able to understand. These blank spaces, they are actually the factors of c, so we'll factor c, and those factors have to sum to b. That's how we know the correct factors of c. We'll factor c, and those factors must add up to equal b. Well, let's look at an example, because just saying that can lack substance. So here's our example. I have x squared plus 7x plus 6. And we have a trinomial, and it is in the form of x squared plus bx plus c, meaning that a is equal to 1. So what I'm going to look at is that 7 is the value of b and 6 is the value of c. And I know that the factored form looks like this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to find the factors of 6 that sum to 7. So here's 6. So 1 and 6. 1 times 6 is 6, so those are factors. And 2 times 3 is 6. Those are factors. Well, I add them together. 1 plus 6, that equals 7. 2 plus 3, that equals 5. Well, this is the one that I'm going to use. Because what did they sum to? They summed to the value of b. This right here is b. So those are my two factors. The factors, then I place them in the blank spaces. So I take 1 and bring it down, and 6 and bring it down. So I have, I'll go ahead and do that. There's 1 and there's 6. Now this is what I have. X plus 1 and x plus 6. Now you check your work. And we've done this in prior sections. What we're going to do is multiply these two together. X times x is x squared. X times 6 is 6x. 1 times x is x, and 1 times 6 is 6. Combine like terms, x squared plus 7x plus 6. And that is what we began with. With these trinomials, I want to point out before we continue on, is that not all of them can be factored. Some cannot with the method that we're using. We will call those prime, and I'll write that over here. Prime. Cannot factor with the methods that we're using. Okay? Prime cannot factor. And that is the method for factoring trinomials where a is equal to 1. Let's look at a couple more examples. Okay, with this example, if you'll notice, b is now negative. So there's my standard form where a equals 1. So x squared plus bx plus c, well, b is now negative. But we still work it the same way. What we're going to do is that we're going to look at the factors of 9. So for 9, but it's going to be just a little bit different in the aspect that what they sum to has to sum to a negative number, because b is a negative 10. So factors of 9, and I need to say, and now 9 is positive, right? I'm going to say negative 1 and negative 9. Negative times a negative is a positive. So negative 1 and negative 9 because a negative times a negative is a positive, or a negative 3 and a negative 3. The reason that I have them being negative is whenever I add these two together, they have to equal a negative 10. So this is the one that is true. And remember, this is my form that I'm going to. This is the factored form. So there's a negative 1 and a negative 9. I don't like plus a negative number. I don't like more stuff being written there. There is nothing wrong with saying x plus a negative 1. I just prefer to make it visually simpler. And this is my factored form of that trinomial. And then I check. X squared minus 9x minus x plus 9. X squared minus 10x plus 9. That's what I started with. So, for that, what I want you to know is that if C, that is C, if C is positive, then the factors of C are either both positive or both negative. Let's look at the next one. So this is, and I'll go ahead and circle, this is what I'm looking at right here, a negative 18. Notice now that my C is negative. I have to multiply the factors together and get a negative answer. This one here takes up just a little bit more time, but at the same time it doesn't, and I'll explain that. But for now, what I'm going to do is write everything out. There are all my factors. And notice, a negative times a positive gives me a negative. So negative 18, positive times a negative gives me a negative. So I have all my factors set up to get a negative 18. And now I need to look at them and see which one can I add together to get B. Which one of these can I add together to get B? What's this one? 3 plus a negative 6. 3 plus a negative 6 equals a negative 3. That is B. That is B. So I know that my form is this, x plus something and x plus something, right? Well, I know that I have a 3 and a negative 6. So x plus 3, x minus 6. Then I check. X squared minus 6x plus 3x minus 18. X squared minus 3x minus 18. I'm good. Same answer as what I started with. Alright, more examples. Whoops. Well, before we do this, okay, so I'll make sure that we reinforce this one, is that if C is negative, then one factor of the pair of factors must be negative. One factor of that pair must be negative in order to make a negative number. Okay. Sometimes with our math, what we need to make sure that we point out is what we're actually doing in the math. If we think about this, we're really doing two things, and that was in our steps. And I'll pull that back over. You know how to find the factors of a number. So what you're going to do is you're going to find factors, and you know how to do that. So find factors, check. And then you have to sum those factors. That means you're going to add. So you're going to have to add. So those are two things, and you know how to do both of those. And the last thing is when we check, and you have to multiply polynomials, specifically two binomials together, and you know how to do that. Those are the three things that you have to do for this problem, and you already know how to do it. Sometimes it's much easier to be able to break down what we're doing and look at, okay, I know how to do this, I know how to do this, I know how to do this. I just need to get the steps down, and that's all you have to do with this. So what we'll do is that we'll make another video in which we'll work some examples. Guys, good luck with factoring your trinomials. Ax squared plus bx plus c, where a equals 1.